June marks Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. More than 5 million Americans are living with this form of dementia that causes problems with the memory, thinking, and behavior. In the search for an Alzheimer's cure, researchers often advocate for human embryonic stem cell research. Where does this leave pro-life Catholics who want to cure Alzheimer's but oppose the destruction of human embryos for research? We're joined now by Dr. David Prentice, the Vice President and Research Director of the Charlotte Lozier Institute, a pro-life research tank, and Lucia Silecchia, a professor of law at the Catholic University of America and expert on elder law. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Prentice, Alzheimer's is such a personal issue for so many of us firsthand witness this disease. Is there any research out there for a cure for Alzheimer's that pro-lifers can support?
Well, you're right, Catherine. It's tragic, not just for the individual, but for their family and loved ones, whom it also affects. The good news is there are glimmers of hope now. In fact, several clinical trials just started with adult stem cells that show some promise in the early stages of being able to at least ameliorate some of the problems with Alzheimer's. And not just that, but also other neurological conditions. So we're looking at trials for stroke, for ALS, as well as for traumatic brain injury, which could obviously help our armed forces people as well.
Right.
And again, it's being done with ethical adult stem cells.
Why does the Church oppose embryonic stem cell research and also fetal tissue research?
Right, and the short answer is simply that embryonic stem cells, aborted fetal tissue, these come from the destruction, the willful destruction of young human lives, which obviously we don't need to do. We shouldn't look to that as a resource. We should be considering ethical alternatives like adult stem cells.
Absolutely. Lucia, in addition to Alzheimer's Awareness this month, there is also the UN-designated World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, recognized on June 15th. According to the Justice Department, 10% of seniors are abused each year. You've written on this. What more do we know about this startling statistic?
Well, partly it's very difficult to know because these cases are very underreported. It's estimated that only 1 out of every 23 cases actually comes to light. In that 10%, we have multiple types of abuse. Financial abuse was the theme of this year's World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. People taking advantage of those who are elderly and the resources that they have, but also physical abuse, psychological abuse, and neglect. And what we're learning about who does that is that very often it will be strangers, it will be professional caregivers, staff at institutions, but often, as with child abuse, it happens within the family as well. And the majority, in fact, may well be family members, which adds to that betrayal.
We absolutely need to draw attention to this. Why is care for the elderly, whether they are suffering from Alzheimer's or dementia or not, why is this increasingly important in our day and age?
For a few reasons. First, just demographically, the population over the age of 65 is growing rapidly, and it's estimated that it will double between 2012 and 2050, both in raw numbers but also as a percentage. Second, one of the things I'm particularly concerned about within the last 5 years is we've seen this steady rise in a push for assisted suicide, and that will target nobody more than the elderly. Right. And so at the same time, we're making wonderful advances in medical care. At the same time, we're also adopting laws that allow us to destroy the most vulnerable people, who are the elderly. And that's a matter of great concern.
Dr. Prentice, back to caring for our elderly who are suffering from Alzheimer's. For Catholics who want to advocate for research for a cure, what advice might you give them? How can they navigate this research with so much focus on embryonic stem cell research?
Well, I think the first thing they ought to do is pray for those researchers who are using the ethical alternatives, that research would be successful and be able to move quickly into the clinic. In terms of who to pray for, as well as who to support, I'd suggest that they contact the National Catholic Bioethics Center.
Okay. Excellent, excellent advice to share with our viewers. And Lucia, what are practical ways that our viewers can care for the aging population in a loving and compassionate response?
I think first it's important to remember that the elderly is all of us in the blink of an eye. And so when we take a look at caring for our elders, we're also talking about the world that I want when I'm in that same group.
That's right.
There's no substitute for presence, and I think as families get smaller and more scattered, making sure that those people within our own family are cared for, that we recognize that the family is a covenant between generations, but also beyond our family, that there are many people who are elderly and alone and that we can reach out to in our communities. I think we have to be vigilant about laws like assisted suicide, hospital ethics codes about how the elderly people are treated. And finally, also to take care of caregivers. And there's a lot of bad news out there, but there's also wonderful news about husbands and wives living 50 or 60 years into that vocation of caring for each other in their old age, and children caring for their parents, and people reaching out to strangers, and people working in care facilities like the Little Sisters of the Poor with so much love and compassion, but making sure that we take care of those people as well who are caring for their elders. And I think finally also to really appreciate our elder sisters and brothers, and not just what we give to them, but the treasure that we're ignoring if we don't make sure that we keep our elders in the heart of our communities and our families.
The unborn and the elderly, they are the bookends of life that we must protect. Dr. Prentice, Lucia Silecchia, thank you both for being here.
Thank you.